The Monty and the Pharaoh Show is brought to you by...
Because wine is your second favorite four-letter word. California wine, New York attitude. Good fucking wine.
Yeah.
Stressful even before he had these health issues. I'm not outside of those 2 years. This is like the first time that anything that I do, I don't have him, there. Kev, you want to do this today? Kev, you want to do this Sunday? Kev, you want to do a special episode? Kev, you want to do this? You want to do predictions? You want to do a recap? This is definitely different. And you know what hurts the most? For the 2-3 years that Kev and I did not talk, even though we were doing our own thing, there was always people trying to get us back together. I always credited Monty and the Pharaoh. Hundreds of people tried to get us back together. But I always remember them trying to convince us in any way for us to get back together doing the shows. And I had told Mike, I said, listen, if I do shows with someone, I got to like them. They got to be my friend. And I'm not going to just do a show just to, and that's how much Kev and I cared, that if we were not copacetic with each other, stop doing our Patreon channel together. Despite us not talking to each other, he still did his shows. I still did my shows. I still sent him the questions. He still did what he did, because Kev and I, even though we weren't talking, maybe one day, maybe you're right. And things started to calm down. And
So probably not the best editing by me, Jimmy, but, as do the best as can. So I didn't want to go long into it, but on Monday, actually Tuesday morning, Jimmy, when I had woke up to head off to work, on our social media pages, multiple social media pages, was Rip Kevin Castle. If anyone doesn't know who Kevin Castle is is one half of the Don Tony Kevin Castle podcast, which in many cases, to anyone that follows pro wrestling podcasts, you could almost consider them the OG of podcasts. And Jimmy, before you and I even started, I caught Don Tony and Kevin Castle just, because I work long hours or whatever, even years ago before we even started, Jimmy. And so I would miss Raw, I'd fall asleep, right? So I'd be like, Don Tony and Kevin Castle were very good. They were very good recappers. It was like you really got your information. It felt like you were watching it. And I was very impressed by their style. So when me and Jimmy got into this, maybe once in a while, Jimmy and I would speak about them. And, Jimmy, we would discuss it or whatever. And, most recently, I don't know, a year ago, Jimmy, we had Don Tony on a pretty rare appearance. And anyway, not to go too long-winded, but we find out that, Monday night, Kevin Castle passed away at the age of 56 years old, way too young. And I thought, Jimmy, this would be a good opportunity for us just to talk about this, because there's more into this than you could imagine. So I'll lead you off with this. They had a tribute show. It was Don Tony and Sky Mish and I think Kevin Castle's brother. And they're speaking about Kevin Castle. but it's not. Do you remember the Tony Atlas Rocky? So if anyone doesn't know, Jimmy and I were going to have the reunion of Tony Atlas and Rocky Johnson on the show.
Their first reunion in decades.
Thank you.
Since they worked together, because they really had such a fallout over the years. And there they were, getting ready to come on the show for the first time in decades. And Rocky passes away. Go on, Mike.
Right? So obviously that's terrible that Rocky Johnson passes away. That's number one. But number two, here we are like, holy cow. So then we have this other tribute show. I'm pretty sure it's Pat Tanaka, Tony Atlas, Sunny Beach.
Yeah.
And it really isn't a tribute show. Tony Atlas starts talking about how Rocky Johnson would have Dwayne put him in a hotel room by himself or with someone to watch while he goes bangs his 80 girlfriends. And it's like, and it's all these stories. You can catch it on a channel. It's like, it's really not a tribute. It's,
Tony's telling all these things that Rocky did to him. He left me in a parking lot with like no money, food, or shoes. It's like, what? We did what?
Here I am. He knows I have to show up these appearances or be on the card and blah, blah, blah. So I'm listening to these three guys, and it's really like not a tribute, Jimmy. They're talking about all the issues Kevin Castle had. And by the way, Kevin Castle is his work name.
Right.
And the first thing my wife said to me was,
it doesn't say Pharaoh on my birth certificate.
Right. But my wife says to me, you're the only idiot in this entire thing that uses his real name.
Yeah. Nick Nemeth.
Yeah. Thank you.
What are you doing? What are you doing? You're killing kayfabe. What's wrong with you?
Idiots. I'm an idiot. What else can I say? I'm a moron.
But you, Mike, it's very jolting. Not to step on you. I'm sorry. It's very jolting because here's my experience with Don Tony, his show, and Kevin Castle. You know that usually I don't really tune into what everybody else is doing. You know how I am. I'm pretty much into when the camera goes on. We paint our picture. I consider this art in some strange way. Sorry, folks, I'm a little twisted. But, and then I go home. That's it. Once in a while, I will look at another show. And you always said really favorable things about Don Tony. So when we finally got to have him on, and yes, I did go and watch some of the stuff, and I can see why they did well, And when we had him on, that guy was awesome. I thought he was fantastic. And I think he's a very engaging person. And wow, how do I put this the right way? They almost remind me of you and me. Is there something wrong with me saying that? Because they're good friends. Obviously, they were really good friends. They were passionate for the same things and put on a great product for the public and did well, and they're friends. And then they have a falling out, but somehow they're still doing the channel, they're still doing the show or what. I'm not saying it's exactly like us. It's not. But it reminds me of us, and they are in our age bracket. So why do I see a parallel in some strange way?
We are alike, but we're different, right?
Yeah,
so
we are.
We do. Yeah, again, this isn't a comparison, but the Jimmy.
No, it made me think about that though. I don't know why.
Well, it made me.
This is a very tragic thing, and it jolted me. I thought to myself, my God, you've had your health issues, I've had mine. Mm-hmm. It's like, my God, what if one of us went? That's like, what do you do? I thought he put that beautifully the way he was talking about that in the clip you showed me there. So that's my observation on that.
Here's what I was thinking, Jimmy. Like, you remember when you were younger? It's even now, right? When you find out someone dies, the first thing it's like, what happened?
Yeah.
Right. Because if they had long-term illness, it's okay. Right. Well, they had long-term illness. I don't have long. What
was his troubles? I don't know anything about that.
As they're speaking, you start to find out that he had health issues.
Okay.
Again, they kept talking. I guess he had chest pains, and he went to the hospital 6 weeks ago, and they put him on medicine, and he had diabetes. But if you look at it this way,
favorite word today, Mike. Go on.
I mean, yeah, dude. But you know what? Diabetes is controllable. But that's what they spoke about. They spoke about how he wasn't taking care of himself. But
as I drink this can of soda,
exactly. That's yeah. There you go. Great. I'll be without a partner in 6 weeks, right?
No. This is it. I've decided
this is the final one. Good.
Look, it's my 2 days off, and when I go back to work, I gotta shape up or ship out.
So here's the thing: Don Tony has always been on video, right? So you know what he looked like,
right? Yeah.
Wasn't
Yeah.
but for
I like it.
odd reason, Kevin Castle would never go on. In fact, we mentioned it on the show, like how come he won't go on video? And Don Tony kayfabes it. He's old school. He doesn't know how to use computer, whatever. And that might have been the case actually too. But you, as they're talking, I'm starting to search the internet, and then you start finding pictures of Kevin Castle, right? And again, older guy like us, overweight.
I'm not overweight.
You're not, but
go on.
I'm just saying in general. Okay,
I got you.
A little overweight. I don't even know if he's a lot overweight, dude. This pictures I saw is a little overweight, right?
Okay.
Short in stature, like 5'5". You know what I mean?
Okay.
Again, this isn't a knock on anything, but little do you find out that Kevin was afraid of people to know what he really looked like because of the persona that people thought he was. So if you ever see on that video, there's a graphic of Don Tony like this.
Yeah, I've seen
this
it.
guy Kevin Castle looks like this tough music band.
Favorable visual presentation. Gotcha.
Exactly. And he was afraid if people saw what he really looked like, they would make fun of him.
Okay.
And in his real life, from what I understand, he lived in a one-room apartment, and again,
so
could have something. But
the point is, at least you're living somewhere. Go on.
I guess he was almost like a shut-in. And his one get out.
He was a recluse, and there's nothing wrong with that. Some people are reclusive, Do you want me to elaborate on what you said?
Well, I'm going to say one other thing, and then it's all you. I want to hear your point. It's like he was a recluse until he put on the Kevin Castle persona, and all of a sudden he's now Kevin Castle, the guy who talks about wrestling and baseball and this other stuff. And I started thinking to myself, man, Monty, this whole thing is weird now because it's we all know wrestling is fake, and you and I have seen the darker sides of wrestlers, right? And not the best sides of wrestlers. And all of a sudden I'm like, oh my God, this is all character stuff. And then at what point, Jimmy, does the character take over the real human being? This is my last thing I'm going to say, and then it's all you. What happens when a person is happier being the character than being himself, is my point to you.
Well, anytime somebody decides to become an entertainer or a musician, something that where you perform your craft in front of the public, you're going down the rabbit hole. Different people go down the rabbit hole in different ways, and some go much further down the rabbit hole than others. Being a recluse, I don't think there's anything wrong with that. Falling into your own gimmick, we've seen it happen. We've been watching it happen with Ric Flair for how many years now? It happens. Oddly enough, Val Kilmer, who recently passed away, talked about after he got done playing Jim Morrison in the Doors, it took him almost a year and visits to psychiatrists even to get him out of the Jim Morrison mind frame that he so diligently worked at before in preparation for the film. So he was basically living mentally like Jim Morrison for probably well over a year for this role. And then he had a detox, Mike, maybe? He had to detox and try to become a normal person again. We saw what going down the rabbit hole did to Heath Ledger, didn't we?
Yeah.
With the Joker. I mean, right. If you're not aware of that story, folks, look it up. So, I don't, it's weird to me when you take it too far. Look, the Pharaoh is something that, in some ways it is similar, but you described how, he was Kevin Castle when he was on the show. The Pharaoh appears when I'm on with you. You know what I mean? The end. And then it's back to real life because real life has to be addressed. You know, like I didn't get the best health news today. And trust me, if I don't do something about what I got to do, I'm a fucking idiot. So I'm probably going to logically, Mr. Spock, do what I got to do.
Right.
It's just, you don't want to like, so I don't know. Were they upset that he could have done something more to take care of himself?
That was part of that conversation.
And that's fair.
There was anger involved for sure, right?
Yeah, well, they clearly also loved him, right?
Yeah.
Right?
Absolutely.
So they're frustrated, perhaps. I haven't seen the clip that you're asking me about, so I can't really say it until I, watch it myself. But, if they're frustrated, of course, look.
They were almost, you know what, Jimmy? It wasn't even like they were frustrated. It was almost like they were angry. Because at first when I'm listening, I'm like, wow. Like at first I'm like, man, I don't know if I agree with this. I don't think going on air and like laying out all this guy's dirty laundry to everybody that didn't know these little dirty secrets is the right thing to do. But then as I listened, I said, these are three guys, and one being his brother. They're angry.
Well, what's the dirty little secrets anyway, though? I mean, what are they saying that he was I haven't heard anything to me to go, oh God, that's really awful.
You gotta remember something, Jimmy, right? When people look, as wrestling fans, right? We watch these wrestlers. We grew up idolizing these wrestlers. We'll just stick to our age, Jimmy. The Bob Backlunds, the Jimmy Snookers,
sure.
Hulk. The Roddy Pipers, the Hulk Hogans, the Brutus Beefcakes, the Savages. Sure. But the thing is, once you pull the curtain back, which all these shows have done with Dark Side of the Ring.
That sounds like Curly. Go on.
When you pull this back, it reveals all the warts, right?
Yeah.
And so the persona of Kevin Castle is a guy who has his shit together.
Right.
Speaks intelligently, very matter-of-factly, respected by wrestlers and the internet wrestling community for his thoughts, right? People buy his T-shirts, right? Because, right?
Sure.
But then you pull back the curtain and you reveal all of Kevin's warts. Yeah. And I think to myself, man, I'm not so sure I agree with that at all. But then again, as I listened, I said, man, these are three people that are just angry with their friend that he was too fucking lazy to address his health issues.
Yeah, and again, like, on a wart level sort of thing, I don't know why, but as you were telling me all of this, I was thinking about when we were kids, the name Rock Hudson was revered, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I mean, you're talking about an entertainer, correct? A level of fame that, like, only we can imagine to compute, and a man's man and a lady's man. And then what was the ultimate outcome? We know the ultimate outcome with Rock Hudson and what he passed away from and all that other stuff. And it's like, you talk about warts. And I think I said in between when you were saying stuff was, life is warts. These warts are just, they're very sad if that's the case. But it's not like, I don't feel like they were like exposing something absolutely, earth shattering that, like,
But you understand what I'm saying there, right?
They're just
back in the day. But back in the day, people protected, and I'm not putting Kevin Castle on his level.
We're living in a different time now. Everybody says everything about everything.
But my point is, at what point do you protect people? Like, if Mickey Mantle was in today's generation, Mickey Mantle would not be as revered as he is. John F. Kennedy, the same thing, right? Like certain things just look, people knew the warts, but we didn't expose the warts. So I'm looking at his brother and I'm looking at Don Tony is his co-host and, one of Kevin Castle's friends, and they're revealing these warts. And again, I'm not saying they're wrong. All I was saying to myself is, there's thousands, tens of thousands, maybe hundreds of thousands of people that watch these guys or listen to these guys weekly. Sure. And maybe in some cases, Kevin Castle was a hero. I don't know, Jimmy. I'm guessing. And it's like when you reveal all this, one, are you just showing everybody, hey, everybody's got problems, don't feel bad? Or are you like, boom, everything I thought about this, I'll be honest with you. I don't know how I fell into it, but when you see those graphics, right? Mm-hmm. I never saw the guy. I'm like, oh, this guy looks like a tough whatever. Okay. When you see the picture of him, you go, okay, now I understand why he didn't want to be on camera, right? Because he definitely would have been food for fodder.
Well,
community.
The height thing that you said, what was it, 5'5"? Did you say 5'5"?
Yeah, yeah, I think so.
I don't know if you know this, but like famous actors from the past, and sorry, that was the point of reference from when we were growing up. Michael Landon. You know who Michael Landon is, I'm assuming?
Oh, yeah,
Michael Landon was much shorter than the other guys on Bonanza, so they had to deal with camera angles, and he had to have like high inch boots to like make him taller and stuff. Richard Basehart, a great actor on Voyage to the Bottom of the Sea, he was very short, and he actually would stand on a box, Mike, not the spirit box, but he would stand on a box, and they wouldn't show that, so he could stand next to Captain Crane, David Hedison, so he would look the same height. So, like, these guys definitely have hangups, about their height if they are shorter. But again, I say, that's, something for them to deal with. I don't really look at it like a gossip point. He was short, whatever. Don Tony never struck me as somebody who's not anything but a straight shooter. So I did hear him say some very nice things about his partner, and he's obviously good friends with him, and they had a falling out. Shit happens. And you could hear the regret in his voice. He's a real person, man. That's the vibe I got from Don Tony. And look, they did great things together,
Well, I hope I'm not coming across as being disrespectful. That's not the point.
No, I'm not.
Here.
Why? Because I have this certain take on it doesn't mean that your opinion is off base.
No, my thing is like there's so many different things that are involved here. It's like,
yeah,
here you are we're revealing stuff about the guy, and then there's the situation where the guy wasn't happy being that guy, but he was happy being the make-believe guy. Like, how does someone fall into that? Look, dude, let's be honest. I love the fact that we have
sometimes this is all somebody has. And you know something? Coming from my way of how I would have been looking at it, I would have been like, bro, at least the one thing you're really good at.
Right, sure.
You know what I'm trying to say? So I'm sorry, but that's my take on that quick thing there.
And you know what? That's a great comment, dude. And look, I understand how someone could fall into it. We've got beautiful people, our family of that come in every Thursday with us, show us that type of respect. And you know what? I'll be honest with you, when I'm walking the street, I mean, that's one of my bigger concerns, dude. Like when I started this job, my wife's like, when it happens, what are you going to do when someone goes, are you Monty from Monty and the Pharaoh?
You've already had that.
This is at my new job.
Oh, I understand.
You understand?
Yeah.
What's your response going to be?
Yes, right? I am. What?
Or
nope, that's not me. It's some other guy who looks like me.
I don't even know what you're talking about, right?
There's a lot of Mike Montes in this world. Look it up on the internet.
But I will say I do love the fact when, like, me and my wife may be walking around and someone says, hey, I love that show, or hey, you're Monty, or like I said at the big event, I don't know how many people came up to you when we were together, and then alone that last time I was like, holy shit. Mm-hmm. So I can understand falling in love with the adulation. Again, them being the originals would be one of the originals that did this. So again, really sad, even more sad that this guy had a capability of maybe trying to correct his health issues and did nothing about it. Really sad that when they used to want to go do public appearances. And I'll be honest with you, they like whenever Don Tony would be like, hey, we're going to go do this, I would laugh and say, they're not showing up. Like I knew it, but I didn't know why. I thought he was just trying to, grease somebody's mind. But the reality is Kevin wouldn't go.
Yeah, that must have been hard for Don Tony. That must have been hard for him.
Yeah. Absolutely, dude.
Yeah, well, I could see how the engine ran over there. At least, look, I don't know all of the inner works, but I will say that you can see that Don Tony's the one that like really drove things. It was like, do you want to do this? Do you want to do that? Do you want to tape this? Do you want to tape that? You know what I mean? He was definitely, so that's got to be frustrating for him.
Well, I think the harder part for him is he broke away from him and Kevin broke away. They got back together and to much success.
Of course.
And now it's like starting over again. And that's got to be tough.
It'll be tough, but I think my money's on him doing it. I mean, come on.
I understand, but you know what, dude? Everybody's getting older, right? And things get tougher as you get older. It's not so easy to recover. And
no, that is true.
I mean, look, dude, I'll be honest with you. If something happened to you, I wouldn't do the show anymore. What's the point? You know what I mean? I wouldn't. I just wouldn't.
And do me a favor though. Don't talk about my warts, please, because like everybody's got them. Thanks.
I wouldn't talk about your warts.
And another thing about Jimmy, he was impossible on planes because he never liked the music they would play.
Hey, so I got a couple of things since we don't ever have time to recognize the wonderful people that join us every week. Jason Morning, we love you, man. Thank you for supporting the channel. Mitch Seinfeld checking in from Brooklyn to New York. Nick,
what is up, Mitch?
Mitch sent me a message where he sent Kamala's wife a congrats for getting into the WWE Hall of Fame. We'll talk about that shortly. RJ Hudson, rocking and rolling. Good man.
RJ, what's up?
Ryan Armstrong, evening from Orlando, Florida. Hello, Mr. Armstrong.
Armstrong in the house. Okay.
Thank you for joining us. Don't know if, I don't know if you're a Don Tony fan or a Kevin Castle fan or a Monty Nefaro fan. It's first time seeing you, but I hope you remain a Monty Nefaro fan, and we thank you for joining us. We've got D.S. Gabal, long live the legend, Kevin Castle.
There you go.
That's what I'm talking about, man. Right? So DS, and I'm sorry, sir, from the Glabell. There's a guy who definitely was affected by Kevin and Don Tony's work. Mm-hmm. And DS, quick question, if you're on the chat, how did you feel about their recap that Monday night announcing the passing of the great Kevin Castle? And did you feel that revealing the warts was okay or not? I just like to know. And there's no wrong answer here. Phil Cesare, my man, the president, the king of New York. Well, the king of Massachusetts.
King of Boston.
Bluetooth Mania. I can't believe he's dead. Feels like yesterday I was listening to him and DT. Bluetooth, very sad for all of us that are in this. Those two are the OG. Thank God Don Tony's okay. Hopefully Don Tony carries on. Kevin will always be remembered. But Bluetooth, I'll ask you the same question. On that recap show, if you have a chance to chat in, I'd like to know if you feel like revealing the warts, I know I'm using that word, was good or bad. Benny the Player in the house from sunny Florida.
What's up, Benny? Hey, he's the baseball bum. Cheap plug.
Okay, so D. Gable says, John just trying to cope. I understand. Good comment. So his brother's John Draper, I believe. Okay. And like I said, he seemed angry. And D. Gable says that he was trying to cope and it was okay. You know what? Good answer, right? Can't argue that answer at all.
Sounds like that to me, too. You know? It does. That it does.
And then he also says, I think Kev was just a lone wolf.
That's fair.
So I'll say this again. I didn't know Kevin Castle. I chatted with him on social media. Mm-hmm. I would say that I can't put the lone wolf tab on him, considering what I eventually learned. And let me also share my thoughts here.
Well, what's a lone wolf to you, if I can ask you that?
I would say a lone wolf is not a shut-in. Okay, a shut-in is someone
that... What is a lone wolf?
Lone wolf's like, hey, man, I do my own thing.
Eastwood in the Westerns?
Sure.
I mean...
Or how about this?
Okay.
I'm a lone wolf. Right. I go to the beach by myself. I'm a lone wolf. I hang out with my dog. I'm a lone wolf. I walk around with my cats. But I do things, right?
With
I
your
don't stay
at the beach?
Well, I'm not a cat, dude. You know what I'm saying? But you know what I'm trying to say. I'm saying that you still live life, but I don't need Jimmy Farrow to live my life, right?
No.
I don't need my wife to live my life.
Yeah.
That to me is a lone wolf. And again, I'm not saying I'm right or wrong. That's my belief, right? That's all.
Yeah. No, I agree with that. I agree with that for sure. No, there's got to be a separation between reality and fantasy. Come on now.
So this is a comment on Facebook. Pro wrestling is not fake. You do not know what you're talking about. Interesting.
I told you it was real, Mike. I've been telling you that for years.
So D. Gable, I guess, is a big follower of DT and Kevin Castle. That graphic was from Kev's younger days, not like the recent pictures when he was in his 50s. Understood. The great Bob Cook. Bob Cook is in the house. Bob
Mr.
Cook,
Cooker's Corner.
one
What's
of the
up?
all-time great wrestlers, WCW, did some WWE action. I've been in wrestling nearly 45 years, and I've never really won, and I've never really lost. Always intelligent comments. But you know when you lose, man? You know when you lose? When you kind of like give up living. That's when you lose, right? In my opinion. Jay Will here, baby. Love to see Jay Will. And what else do I got here? The class project with Mike. A recluse is like Howard Hughes. Sorry, sunglasses. As he became older. Yeah, I agree, sir. That is a recluse. Yeah. And from what I got, and I could be wrong, I'm listening to three guys that knew him, and it seemed like Kevin Castle was a recluse. I could be wrong. I'm just going off what I got from listening to him.
You've known me a long time, and you've known that I've moved 28 times since 1990. Have I ever been in a recluse phase to you?
No, I don't think so.
Oh, that's a relief. Thank you. I was wondering. Now I'm wondering.
I don't think so. I don't.
Yeah, there were time periods where I was alone for years with my cats.
Babe Ruth just said Kevin died. Yes, babe, if you didn't know that, Kevin passed away on, I believe, Monday afternoon. Unfortunately, for the wrestling community, true talent. I don't want to beat this horse. I just wanted to take the opportunity of our show to that show.
Yeah.
We're always, look, here's the deal. We're always in competition, but talent recognizes talent, right? And we're in it to win it. They were in it to win it. We always treated each other respectfully. They know how much we love their show. And I think the love came back to us. But let's not forget, we were all in it to win it. So when we lost Kevin Castle, to us, it was like losing part of our podcast family. And we didn't even have close to the feeling that the gentlemen that are on this chat right now feel, right? They're probably longtime listeners that, like our family, we grow together, and it's like losing a family member. So, prayers to that, right, Jimmy?
Yeah, and what else is also a little bit haunting to me is we've now been doing this long enough that this is the second jolt. With Marati first. And Marati was Dan Marati from Boston Wrestling that was an absolute. And Mr. President, who's in the chat room, how do we know him? How did we get to know Mr. President, Phil DeCesare?
Great point, Jimmy. Great point. And Dan Marati was a hell of a podcaster, right?
Yeah, yes, he was. And that's why this is like, this hurts the people who listened all the time. Of course it does. They love you. If a program works, you somehow find a way, even though we're miles away from each other and we're miles away from a lot of the people who watch us, you'll find a way to connect, right? As people, as from friend to friend, from person to person, if you're able to be organically good enough. And Don Tony was always that with him, and that's why it worked for them. And they had good production too, by the way. Am I allowed to say that?
Better production than shit I'm doing right now.
Well, that's not what I'm getting at. Your opinion. Come on, the indie music television days when we had our own producer doing our shit and stuff like that. That was really, come on, I mean, we're fine. I ain't worried about shit like that.
Well, I'm not counting. I'm counting the.
I got the Wahoo Saloon going on. I'm happy. You stop that.